Well, the US and Russia have asked the UN Security Council to meet over the recent violence in Syria that human rights groups say killed more than 1,000 people, mostly civilians. Fighters loyal to ousted President Bashar al-Assad have been clashing with Syrian security forces for days. Karam Shah runs a consultancy firm focusing on Syrian politics and says few weapons were returned after the fall of the Assad regime, with many remaining in the community.
The vast majority kept their weapons at their homes. They would sleep with Kalashnikovs under their pillows, basically, because they never trusted what the future holds for them. So I think that surge in violence, we've all had it actually coming in one way or another. That's how it manifested itself after all. I think these pockets continue to believe that they have a chance at rerunning the country the way they were doing under the rule of Bashar al-Assad, not realizing that those times are, I think, long gone.
Well, Karam, this then led to revenge killings by those loyal to the current government led by Ahmed Sharaa. Are there risks that this might turn into a full-blown communal conflict?
I think that was a serious risk, but that risk is subsiding. And I think the main reason it's subsiding is actually Ahmed Sharaa. His support base and a significant share of people who fought on the side of the opposition in Syria have long felt that the Alawite community sided against them, that they were far more likely to take the side of Bashar al-Assad. Many of the massacres have indeed been committed by people from that minority, but people are just misreading the whole situation. You know, those on the side of the current government, they blame a whole sect for what happened, which is of course unacceptable. And I think actually the reason why I believe the risk is now subsiding and the scale of violence is on the decline is the fact that interim president has made a speech yesterday and another one today, basically saying that those who have committed violations against civilians will be brought to justice. He's basically acknowledged these violations. He also said that the remnants of the Assad regime who attacked government forces will also be brought to justice. I think he is becoming inclusive, and this is the only way out of this round of violence.
Yes, and how tough a balancing act will this be for Ahmed Sharaa, who's, as you say, promised to govern for all Syrians, be it Sunnis, Alawites, and Christians?
It's going to be incredibly difficult, and I'm glad you asked that question, because his support base, I think, continues to consist of a combination of members of the opposition, but a big chunk of them are members of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and ideologically these tend to be much more extreme than the average opposition fighter throughout the conflict. So to their mind, what Ahmed Sharaa is doing at the moment is just unacceptable in how conciliatory he is, in how lenient he is with former members of the regime, with minorities in general, you know, not just only Alawites, but also Christians and Shia and Druze. I think there is a serious risk, but he is doing his best. And I think he knows that he can turn this threat into an opportunity by basically cracking down on the members of his support base who are too extreme, by basically telling them that these are different times, the whole world is watching. You have to be pushed aside, otherwise the consequences for Syria and for the transition could be very grave. As we've seen from statements from the US government, for instance, they are clearly watching, and they're basically blaming the government for what happened, which is quite simply not fair.
Yes,
it's
and
much more complicated.
Yes, and this must be the big test that is facing this the new leader of Syria, isn't it? To rein in perhaps the more extreme groups that fought with him to topple Bashar al-Assad.
That is by far the most serious test that Ahmed Sharaa has had since he took power, indeed.
Yes, and I want to go to, one of the ex-brigadier generals in Assad's army, Giath Dalla. He announced that there's going to be a new rebellion against the current government. How much power might he have? And might this group even have help from external powers?
I think they thought they can be helped by external powers. I think they were counting mostly on Iran, not knowing that Iran is no longer able to actually support them. Iran is struggling to support its other allies in the region, chief among which Hezbollah in neighboring Lebanon. They're struggling to even deliver just cash shipments to Hezbollah fighters. I think they overplayed their hand. I think part of what they did, that is the former members of the Assad regime, was in an attempt to basically also protect themselves, because they felt that their days are numbered and that they will be arrested eventually. And so they thought maybe they can go on the offensive instead. I think it's a huge miscalculation on their part. They do not appreciate that they do not have the manpower or the arms that the government and its allies have at the moment.
Of course, Ahmed Shara, he has said that he will bring the perpetrators to justice, irrespective of which groups they come from, if they are known to have killed or harmed civilians. Do you think he will sort of treat all aspects of this equally?
Okay, that's a good question. I think we have to wait and see. However, I think it's indeed in his own interest to actually go after all of those who committed violations. It's in his own interest to present himself as the president for all Syrians, because that's not only what Syrians are waiting to see, but actually the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is literally counting the breaths of Ahmed Shara. Everyone is watching very closely how he is gonna behave. So I think, at least for the time being, he is gonna be genuine in his promises.
Okay, Karam Shah, really good to get your analysis on the situation in Syria. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.